One night in a stranger's bed. A man whose name Ayanna didn't know, only that he was dangerous. Cold, powerful, and terrifyingly in control, Enzo De Luca was the kind of man women feared and the kind men obeyed. Ayanna never planned to meet him. She never planned to witness a mafia crime. And she definitely never planned to wake up in his penthouse, wrapped in silk instead of armor. But there she was, inside a velvet prison, facing a mafia boss who didn't blink, living through a single night that burned through her like fire. She was supposed to be a problem, a liability, a name that needed to disappear. Instead, she became something else entirely. By morning, the fear hadn't faded, but it had changed. Curiosity took its place. Tension followed. And beneath it all, a dangerous connection neither of them dared to name, even as the city outside pulsed with secrets and watched them both too closely. Months later, as enemies closed in and the past refused to stay buried, Ayanna found herself standing in a place she never imagined, not as his prisoner, but as the one choice that could destroy him. Now let me tell you how one night in Toronto changed everything. What began in fear became fate. Before I begin, let us know in the comment where you are watching from and subscribe to this channel to support our growth. The sheets were too soft. Ayanna's first thought as consciousness returned was how utterly wrong everything felt. Not because of pain, there was none, but because of the eerie comfort. Her cheek rested on silk, her skin cocooned in warmth, the kind of luxury reserved for women who had time to be pampered. Not the kind of comfort you woke up to after running for your life. Her body tensed before her eyes even opened. There it was, the memory, the alley, the scream, the gun. She bolted upright. The room was enormous. No, palatial. High glass walls stretched from floor to ceiling, revealing a skyline glittering like diamonds across the inky Toronto night. The lights of the city blinked coldly back at her, like they too were witnesses to her mistake. Ayanna's breath came in short, sharp pulls. She was on a massive bed, wrapped in blush pink silk. Her clothes from the night before were gone, replaced by a satiny slip that clung to her body in all the wrong ways. Her curls were still damp from the rain. Her heart thundered like it was trying to break out of her ribs. Where was she? A shadow moved in the corner. She turned so fast it made her dizzy. And there he was, seated in a leather chair like a king on a modern throne, legs spread, arms resting on the chair like he owned everything his eyes touched. He wore a black shirt, open enough to reveal a tattoo sprawled across his chest, like ink over marble. His beard was silver, trimmed, regal. And those eyes, God, those eyes, cold, calculated, watching her like she was both an inconvenience and an unsolvable equation. "Good," he said. His voice was smooth, low, Italian accent thick but polished. "You're awake." Ayanna yanked the blanket tighter around her. "Where the hell am I?" "My penthouse," he answered simply. "Downtown, 62nd floor. You're safe. For now." Her brows furrowed. "Safe? Safe from what? You?" She swung her legs off the bed, ignoring the dizziness that came with it. "You shouldn't stand yet," he said. "Screw that." She stood anyway. The world tilted. For a split second, everything shimmered like glass, then righted. She steadied herself against the bedpost, furious that he'd seen her stumble. "Who are you?" she demanded, voice low and sharp. He studied her, not like a man looking at a woman, like a strategist analyzing a threat. "Enzo De Luca." The name hit her like a slap. Everyone had heard of Enzo De Luca. In whispers, in headlines, in stories people told each other in bars when they thought no one was listening. The Italian man who'd built a criminal empire across continents. The one who ran things not through violence, but through cold, surgical precision. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He just made people disappear. Ayanna took a step back. You kidnapped me. You saw something you weren't supposed to. I saw you kill someone. He tilted his head, almost amused. And yet you're still alive. Why? She asked. Why am I still breathing? Enzo stood slowly. He moved like a storm that hadn't decided yet whether to destroy or pass. Because, he said, walking toward her with maddening calm, I don't make impulsive decisions, and killing you would be impulsive. Ayanna's fingers clenched around the edge of the silk blanket. You think that's comforting? I don't care if it's comforting. He stopped just a few feet from her. Up close, he smelled like leather and danger. His eyes scanned her face, slow and deliberate. You have a fire in you, he murmured. It's rare. Most people beg when they wake up in this room. You? You're angry. I'm furious, she spat. Enzo nodded once, approving. Good. Stay that way. It'll keep you sharp. She narrowed her eyes. You think this is a game? No. Games end. This doesn't. Silence stretched between them, tight as piano wire. She didn't know what he wanted from her. Not yet. But Ayanna wasn't going to play submissive. That wasn't in her blood. You can't keep me here, she said, forcing her voice to stay steady. Enzo arched a brow. Can't I? I'll go to the police. You won't. You think I'm scared of you? No, he said quietly. I think you're smart enough to be scared of what comes after me. The threat hung in the air like smoke. He didn't have to raise his voice, didn't have to step closer. The weight of him, the sheer gravity of his presence, was already pressing against her like a hand to the throat. But Ayanna didn't flinch. Instead, she stepped forward, just enough to let him know she wasn't afraid, not all the way. I want my clothes, she said. They were wet. I had them burned. Her eyes widened. What? You won't need them. Excuse me? There's a wardrobe. He gestured toward a sleek, mirrored wall. All your size. You had clothes brought here? For me? I had them here before you arrived. The words hit her like ice. You were planning this. No, he said calmly. I planned for contingencies. Her skin prickled. Every cell in her body screamed to run. But there was nowhere to go. She didn't even know which way the elevator was, if there even was one. You're insane, she whispered. Enzo tilted his head again, like he was studying a painting. No, he said softly. I'm bored. Ayanna took a shaky breath. Let me go. He looked at her for a long moment, and then he said, No. The word was a verdict. Ayanna's jaw clenched. You can't keep me here forever. I won't have to, he said. You'll stop wanting to leave. She laughed, bitter and sharp. You think I'm going to fall for you? For this twisted little kingdom of yours? Enzo didn't answer. Instead, he walked away. Just like that. Turned his back on her and strolled to the bar near the window. He poured himself a drink, something dark and expensive, and took a sip, still watching the city like it belonged to him. Ayanna stared at him. What kind of man turns his back on a threat? A man who never sees people as threats. Her blood boiled. She crossed the room and stood just behind him. I'm not yours to keep, she said, her voice low, fierce. Enzo turned slightly, just enough to meet her gaze. No, he agreed. But you're not free either. She wanted to hit him, to scream, to run. But the city stretched too far. The sky was too high. And the man before her was built of something colder than steel. Instead, Ayanna stepped closer, just enough to whisper the words she knew would strike deeper than any slap. You're a coward. His jaw flexed. She saw it, just for a second. He set the glass down with a soft click. Then he turned fully toward her. I've buried men for less, he said, and yet I'm still standing. His eyes burned, but not with rage. Something darker, something dangerous, something intrigued. You'll stay in this penthouse, he said finally, until I decide what to do with you. You'll have anything you want, except freedom. Ayanna stared back at him, and then, God help her, she smiled. A small, mocking curve of her lips. If this is how you keep control, she said, you're already losing it. Enzo's lips twitched, just the faintest smirk. And then he turned back to the window, the city reflected in his eyes. Neither of them spoke after that. But the room? It crackled with something electric, something inevitable. The game had begun. And Ayanna Brooks was no one's pawn. Ayanna had never felt so overdressed and underpowered in her life. The silk clung to her skin like a second insult. Soft, expensive, utterly useless. She stood in front of the mirrored wardrobe, its doors wide open, revealing a curated collection of clothing in neutral tones and luxury fabrics. Dresses, blouses, lingerie that whispered seduction and command. Nothing practical, nothing with pockets. She slammed the door shut. He was watching her. She could feel it, like a heat at the back of her neck. It wasn't just the cameras, though she was sure there were at least 3 in the suite alone. It was something deeper. That unsettling presence. That certainty she wasn't alone, even when she was. Ayanna didn't bother knocking when she stormed into the main room. Enzo was at the dining table, one leg crossed over the other, sipping espresso like it was a ritual passed down through generations. Black shirt, rolled sleeves, calm as ever. I want a phone, she said. He didn't look up. No. Then I want a lawyer. No. I want a goddamn explanation. That made him pause. Slowly, he set the espresso cup down, the porcelain clinking gently against the saucer. Then he looked at her. Really looked at her. You're persistent. I'm angry. Those are not mutually exclusive. Ayanna crossed her arms, standing just outside striking distance. Not that she thought he'd hit her, no. Enzo didn't seem like the type to get his hands dirty. But there was still something lethal about him. It radiated beneath his skin, simmering just under the surface. The kind of man who could destroy you with a whisper, not a weapon. I know your name, she said. Enzo De Luca. I've heard the stories. I've read the headlines. He offered a dry smile. Then you also know how often the press gets it wrong. Do they? She challenged. Because from what I've seen, they might have underplayed it. Enzo tilted his head, amused. Tell me what you think you know. You're a mafia boss. You run half of Europe's underworld and most of Toronto's. You traffic power like it's currency, and when someone crosses you, they don't get a second chance. She let the silence hang between them. I saw what you did in that alley, she said quietly. I saw the man with the gun. I saw you make the call. Enzo didn't deny it. What you saw was justice, he said. Ayanna blinked. That man begged. He was terrified. And he broke a blood oath. Terrified men still bleed when they betray. Something in her chest twisted. She didn't know what she had expected. Remorse, denial, a lie wrapped in charm. But he gave her none of that, just truth, cold and clinical. You're a monster, she whispered. No, he said. I'm a necessity. For what? For keeping worse men in line? The words struck deeper than she wanted to admit. She hated him. She hated his calm, his wealth, his logic. But beneath all that hate, a dangerous truth simmered. He believed it. And worse, some part of her wasn't sure he was wrong. You're not untouchable, she said. He stood. The shift was subtle, but immediate. The room changed with him. The calm unraveled just enough to reveal the weight beneath it. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. You're under my protection, he said. Ayanna laughed once. Sharp, humorless. Is that what this is? Protection? Looks a lot like imprisonment from where I'm standing. You're alive, aren't you? For now. He stepped closer, slow and deliberate. You want truth, Ayanna? Fine. The truth is, you saw something that could have gotten you killed. The truth is, I've spared you when everyone else wanted me to bury the problem. And the truth is, you're still here because I'm curious. Her voice barely came out. Curious? You're different, he said. Most people panic, beg, break. You haven't. Maybe I will, she said, chin raised. No, he said. You'll fight. And I want to see what that looks like. Her skin crawled. She had the sickening feeling that she was already inside the game, and he had been playing it long before she knew there was a board. I'm not your entertainment. No, he agreed. You're my guest. But even guests follow rules. He pulled a sleek black envelope from the table and held it out to her. Ayanna didn't move. What's that? Your conditions. She snatched the envelope and tore it open. Her eyes skimmed the page. Do not leave the penthouse. Do not contact anyone outside. Do not lie to me. Do not interfere in family business. Do not try to run. She looked up, incredulous. Is this a joke? I don't joke. I'm not following these. Enzo smiled. Then we'll see what happens. She took a breath, the rage flaring again. You can't control me. No, he said, but I can contain you. She walked right up to him then, close enough to see the lines at the corners of his eyes, the way the tattoo across his chest moved when he breathed. If you think I'm going to play your game, she said, you're already losing. There was a beat of silence. Then, you haven't even learned the rules, he murmured. Ayanna turned and walked away before he could say anything else. She didn't care that he was watching. She didn't care that she had no plan. All she knew was that every instinct screamed at her to reclaim something, anything, that belonged to her. Back in the bedroom, she changed into the sharpest, tightest outfit in the wardrobe, a cream silk blouse, a pencil skirt with a thigh-high slit, and red lipstick, because if she was going to be a prisoner, she'd be a stunning one. Then she went straight to the security panel by the elevator and hit every button. Locked. Of course. She turned around to find one of his men standing silently at the end of the hall. Black suit, blank face. She glared. Take me to Enzo. He didn't move. Now. The man spoke into an earpiece. A pause. Then a nod. Wordlessly, he led her to Enzo's office. The door opened to reveal him behind a massive glass desk overlooking the city. He didn't look up from his phone. Let me go, she said again. No. Then give me something to do. He looked up, surprised. Excuse me? I'm not going to rot in this tower wearing silk and sipping champagne while you play God. His brow lifted. And what would you do instead? Work? You think I'm going to hand you a job? No, she said. I think you want to see what happens when I break your rules. Enzo stood. There was a flicker in his eyes. Interest, maybe? Or something sharper. You're not afraid to challenge me. Should I be? Yes. Silence stretched between them. Then he said, You'll shadow me for the day. You'll listen, not speak. Watch, not act. I'll do more than that, she said. You won't, he replied coolly. Because if you interfere, I'll have you sent to a safe house where your only companion will be silence. Ayanna clenched her fists. Fine, I'll play your game. Enzo smiled, slow and dangerous. Welcome to the board, Miss Brooks. And just like that, the game began. Silk on her skin, steel in her spine. Ayanna didn't know the rules, but she was about to break every single one. The city shimmered like a jewel box outside the window, but Ayanna didn't care. She sat curled in the corner of the leather chaise, arms wrapped around her knees, her body still humming from hours of silence and tension. Shadows stretched long and low across the penthouse, flickering like ghosts whenever headlights swept past 60 floors below. The world outside kept moving. But in here, time had gone still. She hadn't spoken to Enzo since the morning. He'd vanished after that thin-lipped smile and his promise of a shadowing day. Instead, his guards had brought her lunch like she was a hotel guest on lockdown. She'd wandered the penthouse, memorizing doorways, silently noting exits, stairwells, weaknesses, anything. But every inch of the place had been designed like a trap disguised in beauty. She was locked in a palace made of glass and steel. Now it was late, and she wasn't sleeping. The silence broke. "You don't like the dark?" His voice, low, smooth, cut through the quiet like a knife through fabric. She didn't flinch, even though she hadn't heard him enter. He was good at that, appearing without warning, like he'd been there all along. Enzo stood at the edge of the room, half in shadow, sleeves rolled, a glass of something amber in his hand. Ayanna met his eyes. "I don't like being watched." He walked toward her with deliberate ease. "You always sit like that when you're alone?" "I'm not alone," she said. "Exactly." She uncurled slowly, grounding her feet on the carpet. He was close now, close enough to catch the scent of him. Leather, spice, danger dressed in restraint. "You didn't follow through," she said. "On what?" "Letting me shadow you." "I changed my mind." "Because I talked back?" "Because you're not ready." Ayanna stood facing him. "You don't know what I'm ready for." "I know what happens when people get too close to my world." "And what happens?" "They get buried in it." The words were matter of fact, almost gentle. Not a threat, just a reality he'd lived with too long. Ayanna tilted her head, studying him. "Do you always talk like that?" "Like what?" "Like you're waiting for someone to prove you wrong but secretly hoping they won't." Something shifted in his eyes, just for a second. "I talk like someone who's seen enough." "Enough of what?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked past her, set the drink down on the table, and moved to the wall of windows. Hands in his pockets, eyes on the city. "This place," he said. "Toronto, Rome, New York. Cities are all the same when you stand high enough. The lights blur out the blood." Ayanna crossed her arms. "That's supposed to impress me?" "No. It's supposed to remind you who you're talking to." She stepped closer. "I know who you are. I'm just not afraid of it." "You should be." "Why?" she asked. "Because you've killed people? Because your name makes grown men piss themselves in alleyways? Or because deep down you think if anyone sees what's under all that control, they'll stop respecting you?" Enzo turned then, and the look in his eyes was something sharp and heavy all at once. "You talk like someone who's been broken before," he said. Ayanna's throat tightened. The words hit too close. She didn't answer. He took a step forward. "You know what it's like to lose power," he said. "To stand in a room and feel invisible. To scream and have no one hear it. That's why you hate silence. That's why you fight." Her breath came shallow now, but she refused to look away. "I don't break," she whispered. "No," he agreed. "But someone tried." Ayanna moved to the bar, needing distance, needing space to breathe. She poured water into a crystal glass with shaking hands, willing them steady. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. "You think just because you've seen blood and war and whatever hell you crawled out of, you can read people?" "No," Enzo said. "But I can read pain. We carry it the same way, like armor." She drank the water, slow. Ice cold. It grounded her. "Who was it?" she asked. "The first person you had to kill." Enzo blinked once, as if surprised by the question. Then he walked to the couch and sat, elbows on knees, the weight of memory sinking into his shoulders. "My uncle," he said. Ayanna lowered the glass. "What?" "I was 16. He murdered my father in front of me. I waited 3 years, learned the business, earned trust. Then I put a bullet in his throat." She stared at him. "You planned revenge as a teenager?" "No. I planned survival. The only way to live in that world was to end him. There was no justice coming, no redemption. Just me." Ayanna sat across from him, the quiet between them less sharp now. Still heavy, but not threatening. What about your mother? She asked. She left when I was 9, couldn't handle what the family was. She thought if she ran far enough, it wouldn't follow her. Did it? Of course. Ayanna looked down at her hands. Mine died when I was 13. Car accident, drunk driver. I was in the back seat. Enzo said nothing, just watched her. My father, her voice caught. He was never really the same after that. Started drinking, started changing. A beat. He hurt you, Enzo said. Not all the time, just enough to make me forget what safe felt like. Enzo leaned forward, forearms resting on his thighs. Is that why you came here? Toronto? Ayanna nodded. New job, new life, new city, where no one knows who I used to be. You're not who you used to be. No, she said. I'm not. They sat in silence again. But this time, it wasn't awkward. It wasn't barbed or cold. It just was. Ayanna studied him. There's something strange about you, she said. I hear that often. You live like a king, kill like a ghost, and yet you talk like a man who's already dead inside. He smiled, slow. Maybe I am. She shook her head. No, dead men don't get curious. His gaze locked with hers. Do you want to know what I see when I look at you, Ayanna? Tell me. I see someone who refuses to be swallowed. I see the same in you, she said. Something unspoken shifted between them. Neither of them moved. But the air had changed. It wasn't just tension. It was recognition. Two people who wore armor not just to protect, but to survive. Two souls shaped by fire, refusing to melt. Ayanna stood first. I should go to bed. Enzo didn't argue. She turned, walking toward the bedroom, but paused in the doorway. I still don't trust you, she said. He looked at her. I don't expect you to. But I don't hate you either, she added quietly. That made his expression shift. Just slightly. Just enough. I'll take it, he said. Ayanna disappeared into the shadows. Enzo remained on the couch, staring out at the city. Eyes like knives, heart like stone. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel quite so alone. Rain tapped soft against the glass, blurring the skyline in hazy streaks of silver. The penthouse felt quieter than usual, cloaked in a kind of waiting. Ayanna stood at the edge of the floor-to-ceiling windows, arms crossed, eyes tracing the distant lights that flickered like they were trying to speak a language only she could understand. Behind her, the soft clink of glass and the low hum of classical music spilled from the speakers in the corner. Enzo was at the bar again, back turned, pouring himself something dark and expensive like he always did after dusk. He hadn't said much since the night they traded scars in the quiet. That conversation had left something behind, something neither of them seemed ready to name, but couldn't ignore either. Ayanna didn't know why she hadn't tried to escape again. Maybe because... Maybe because, for the first time in a long time, she felt seen. You don't sleep, Enzo said behind her, breaking the silence. She didn't turn. Neither do you. He walked toward her slowly, the soft pad of his footsteps muted by the thick rug underfoot. When he stopped, she could feel the weight of him at her back. His presence was its own kind of gravity. Is it the nightmares? He asked. Ayanna let the question linger. No, she said. It's the silence. It reminds me of all the things I never said. Enzo didn't answer, but she felt him move closer, not touching, just there. Like a wall, like a warning, like something that could either protect her or break her if she leaned too hard. You always wear black, she murmured. So do you. Not tonight. She looked down at the silk robe wrapped around her body, pale pink, soft as breath. It had been draped across her bed like an invitation. She tried not to wear it, but in the end, curiosity, or maybe defiance, had won. "It suits you," he said. "You're trying to be charming now?" "No," he said softly. "I'm just being honest." She turned then, slowly, forcing herself to meet his eyes. He was closer than she expected, inches away. His shirt was open at the collar, sleeves rolled, tattoo visible against his chest. That mark again. Ink sharp against skin, like a promise made in blood. "You're dangerous," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "So are you," she swallowed. "This is a mistake." Enzo nodded. "Probably." And then he reached up, slowly, giving her time to stop him. He brushed a curl away from her face, fingers trailing just lightly enough to feel electric. Her breath caught, and for a moment, neither of them moved. Then Ayanna closed the distance. The kiss was a storm. It wasn't gentle or uncertain. It was fire meeting fire. Teeth, lips. A gasp swallowed between mouths that had waited too long. She wasn't sure who grabbed first, his hands on her waist, hers fisted in his shirt, but it didn't matter. It was mutual ruin, beautiful and instant. His mouth was heat and control, his grip strong enough to hold her, but not break her. She kissed him like he was a question she'd been too afraid to ask, like something in her had already decided she'd regret this, and still wanted more. When he pulled back, barely, his breath was uneven. "We shouldn't," he murmured against her lips. "Then stop," she whispered. He didn't. His mouth claimed hers again, slower this time, deeper. One of his hands slid to the small of her back, the other into her hair, anchoring her as if she might drift away if he let go. Ayanna melted into him before she realized what she was doing. She'd spent days resisting this, resisting him. But in that moment, all she could feel was the heat pooling low in her stomach, the ache of something she hadn't felt in so long she forgot what it was called. Desire. She broke the kiss first, gasping for air, eyes wide and wild. Enzo looked at her like he was trying to memorize everything. Ayanna stepped back, just enough to think, to breathe. The room tilted, not physically, but emotionally. The balance they'd built was gone, shattered. This wasn't part of the arrangement. It wasn't part of anything. "You want control?" she asked, voice hoarse. "No," he said. "I want truth." Her arms crossed again, but this time it was to keep herself from shaking. "The truth is, I don't know what I'm doing." He nodded once. "Neither do I." Silence wrapped around them again, the kind of silence that felt full, not empty. Her pulse still raced, her lips still burned, and she knew, God, she knew, this had changed something. "You kiss like you're not afraid of consequences," she said. Enzo's eyes darkened. "I live with them every day." She turned back to the window, needing to ground herself, needing space. "You going to tell me that was a mistake now?" she asked. "No," he said, "but it was dangerous. I already told you. I'm not afraid of you." "You should be." "Why?" "Because I don't lose things," he said, "and I don't share." She turned back to him, heart stammering. "I'm not a thing to be kept." "No," he said, "but you're already mine." The words sank into her like ink into water. Too fast. Too much. Too late. Ayanna should have walked away then, should have turned her back and shut the door and reclaimed whatever lines they'd just erased. But instead she whispered, "Then stop holding back." And just like that, the door was open. The dangerous kind. The kind you can't close once you step through. She saw it in his eyes. The flicker of restraint. the last thread of logic trying to hold him back. But they were past that now. The first touch had already broken them, and everything after would burn. The morning came without warning. No alarm, no sun, just the dim gray of Toronto's winter pressing against the glass and the ache of a night she couldn't name. Ayanna lay still in the massive bed, her body wrapped in warmth, but her mind already pacing. Enzo was gone. She felt it before she reached for the space beside her and found it cold. It wasn't a surprise. He'd kissed her like a man who didn't know how to want gently, like someone who'd been starving without realizing it until his lips were on hers. And yet, when it was over, he hadn't stayed. She rolled over and stared at the ceiling, the silence of the penthouse no longer peaceful, but expectant, charged, like something was coming. Voices echoed faintly beyond the double doors, low, tense, male. Ayanna moved quickly, sliding out of bed and into one of the silk robes she hated how much she liked. She padded across the floor on bare feet, quiet as a whisper, and pressed her ear to the door. Nothing. Then, cautiously, she cracked it open. The voices were clearer now, coming from down the hall, just beyond the curved glass wall that led to Enzo's private study. She followed them, silent and steady, heart hammering with each step. "Can't keep her here, Enzo," one of them said. Not Enzo, someone else, sharp, agitated. "She's a civilian," another voice added. "You said one night, it's been 5. "She's not a problem," Enzo replied, calm and measured. "She is the problem," the first voice snapped. "She saw the hit. She knows who we are. She knows you. And now you're sleeping with her?" Ayanna froze. The silence that followed was loud. "I said," Enzo's voice came finally, low and dangerous, "that I'm handling it." "You're not thinking straight. This is how it starts, Enzo. One woman, one weakness, and suddenly you forget who you are. This is how men like you fall." "She's not a weakness. Then what is she?" There was a pause, heavy enough to crush air. "She's mine," Enzo said. Ayanna backed away, breath caught between her ribs like a trapped bird. They knew. They all knew. And worse, some of them hated it. She turned to head back to the bedroom, but a voice stopped her. "She overheard," someone muttered. Ayanna's blood went ice cold. Another voice replied, darker this time. "Maybe it's time we fix that." She didn't wait to hear more. She ran. The doors to the penthouse bedroom closed just as footsteps rounded the corner. She pressed her back to them, heart thudding so loud she could hear it in her ears. Her hands trembled. Not with fear, but with fury. Not because she was helpless, but because she'd started to believe she was safe. She wasn't. Not here. Not even with him. She paced the length of the room, then grabbed her clothes from the back of the velvet chair. No silk tonight, no pretty robes, just her, in jeans, boots, and the resolve she had arrived in Toronto with. She needed to get out, not because she was scared of Enzo, but because she knew the rules of this world now. You didn't get second chances. You didn't get time to figure it out. You either ran or you died wondering if you should have. The elevator was out of the question, but maybe the emergency stairwell. She'd seen it once at the far end of the hallway behind the staff wing. It was rarely guarded, no cameras, just a steel door and a long descent. She crept out again, quiet and fast. The voices were gone now, the hall empty, the tension like a shadow that hadn't decided where to land yet. Her boots made no sound on the marble floor. Her fingers brushed the cold steel of the emergency handle. But before she could pull it, "I wouldn't," Enzo's voice, behind her. She turned slowly. He stood there, coat on, hair damp from the rain, jaw tense, eyes unreadable. "You lied to me," she said. "I never promised you safety from my men," he replied, "but you let me believe it. I let you stay alive. That's different." Ayanna's eyes burned. They want to kill me. They don't get to want things. They said you're not thinking straight, that I'm a weakness, that you're falling. Enzo stepped closer. Are you trying to convince me or yourself? I want out. No, he said simply. You don't get to trap me here and call it protection. You don't get to play savior and sinner in the same breath. I'm not playing anything, he said. This is who I am. Then I'm done. She turned to the door again. Go, he said behind her. Run. See how long you last. She froze. You think I won't make it? She asked, voice low. I think they'll find you before you reach the street. Ayanna turned back to him. Then help me. If you care, even a little, help me disappear. Something flickered in his eyes. Conflict, pain, maybe pride bleeding at the edges. I don't let people go, he said. Maybe it's time you learn. A long silence passed. Rain beat harder against the glass. A siren wailed in the distance. Then Enzo stepped forward and gently reached for her hand. She didn't flinch, but she didn't take it either. You don't know what it costs, he said softly, to protect something fragile in a world built on fire. I'm not fragile, she said. No, he agreed. But you're not made for this life. Then let me choose my own. He looked at her like he wanted to argue, but he didn't. He just nodded once, slow. I need time, he said. You don't have it. I'll buy it. Ayanna stared at him for a long, aching second. Then she pulled her hand away and walked back down the hall. The game had changed. Loyalty was cracking. And now the Mafia was moving. She wasn't safe anymore, not even from him. The wind was brutal at 60 stories up. Ayanna stood barefoot on the edge of the penthouse balcony, silk robe whipping around her legs, city lights stretching far below like stars spilled across concrete. Her hands gripped the cold steel railing, her breath fogging the night air. She wasn't planning to jump. She wasn't that kind of desperate. But for the first time since she'd landed in this nightmare, she understood why someone might consider it. There was something seductive about the idea of silence. A way out that didn't involve running, hiding, bleeding. But Ayanna Brooks wasn't made to disappear. She was made to survive. The decision had been made hours ago. After the whispers, after the confrontation, after Enzo's quiet, haunted, I don't let people go. She'd gone back to the bedroom, not to rest, but to plan. Her eyes scanned the blueprints she'd etched into memory. The emergency stairwell, the lack of cameras near the service elevator, the brief window between 3:15 and 3:30 a.m. when the guards rotated shifts. She had one shot, and she was going to take it. Ayanna dressed in silence. Black jeans, sneakers, a hoodie stolen from one of the staff closets. Her curls were tied back tight, her face bare. No scent, no jewelry. Nothing that could catch the light or give her away. She moved like smoke down the back hallway, heart a steady thud against her ribs, adrenaline sharpening every sense. The door to the emergency stairs loomed ahead, locked electronically. But Enzo had shown her once, accidentally, that he kept an override key in his office, hidden beneath a drawer lined with pistols and cigars. She'd taken it 3 hours ago. It slid in cleanly. The lock gave a soft click. The door creaked open. Cold air rushed in from the stairwell, damp and metallic. She didn't hesitate. She didn't look back. Floor by floor, Ayanna descended. 30, 20, 15. Her legs ached. Her lungs burned. But her mind stayed sharp. No alarms, no footsteps, just the hum of emergency lights and the sound of her breath echoing down steel and stone. When she hit the lobby level, she stopped behind the last door, listened. Voices. 2 men, laughing, a mention of poker, cigars. Nothing sharp, nothing alert. She waited for the next burst of laughter, then pushed the door open and slipped into the shadows. The lobby was sleek marble, dripping with gold and quiet menace. Security cameras faced forward, not toward the service corridor. Ayanna moved fast, hugging the wall, ducking into a janitor's closet, then slipping through the side exit into the alley. Rain slapped her face. The city was soaked. Neon signs blurred through the downpour, casting red and green streaks across puddles. Taxis rushed past. Headlights swept through fog. It was alive out here, loud, chaotic, free. Ayanna ran. No plan, no destination, just movement. Away from Enzo. Away from the men who wanted her dead. Away from the man who claimed to care but would rather keep her caged than let her go. She didn't stop until her legs gave out on a side street just off Spadina. She collapsed against a graffiti-covered wall, gasping, heart hammering against her ribs like it wanted to escape too. Her clothes were soaked, her hoodie clung to her like second skin. But she was out. She was out. She tilted her head back and laughed, breathless and wild. Then she cried. It didn't last long. Ayanna wasn't the kind of woman who broke apart in alleys. But the tears came anyway, fast and hot and furious. Because even if she'd escaped the penthouse, she knew she hadn't escaped the war. Enzo wouldn't let her go that easily. And worse, some part of her didn't want him to. Enzo found the empty bed first. The sheets were cold, the robe gone. The override key missing from his drawer. By the time he reached the control room, the footage confirmed what he already knew. Ayanna had vanished, ghost-like, between two shifts, cutting through the city like a phantom. No help, no allies, just instinct and desperation. She's gone, Matteo said behind him, lips pressed thin. Told you she was a problem. Enzo didn't speak. His eyes tracked the grainy footage, her silhouette in the stairwell, the flash of her dark hoodie, the final moment when the side door closed and she disappeared into the rain. He should have been angry. He wasn't. He was aching. I'm going after her, he said. Matteo's expression turned cold. If she talks, she won't. You trust her? Enzo turned. His eyes were steel. No, but I know her. Ayanna slept in an abandoned office building her second night out. Nestled between the financial district and the edges of Chinatown, it had been left half-renovated, full of scaffolding and silence. She curled up on a makeshift cot of cardboard and blankets, lulled by the distant sounds of streetcars and drunk strangers yelling into the night. She'd stolen a burner phone, some cash from a laundromat till, and protein bars from a corner store. It wasn't survival, it was barely survival. But she was alive. She kept telling herself that mattered. The knock came on the third night. Soft, precise. 3 taps. Then silence. Ayanna's heart stopped. She reached for the pipe she'd found behind the boiler, moved toward the door, waited. 3 more taps. She swung it open fast. He was standing there. Enzo. Soaked. Silent. Unmoving. Ayanna's hands shook. How? You left a trail. No, I didn't. He looked down. Her stolen hoodie was branded with a faded logo from a dry cleaner downtown. She cursed under her breath. Rookie mistake. Enzo stepped inside. She didn't stop him. I'm not going back, she said. I didn't come to take you. Then why are you here? He didn't answer. Just looked at her. Like a man who hadn't slept. Like someone who'd crossed a line and couldn't find his way back. You were right, he said softly. You don't belong in that world. Ayanna's throat tightened. And you do. I was born in it. Doesn't mean you have to die in it. Enzo stepped closer, not touching, just there. I've spent my life building walls so no one could leave me, he said. But the moment you walked out, I couldn't breathe. Her eyes burned. Then why didn't you stop me? Because you deserve to choose. Silence. And then, "Are you going to kill me now?" she whispered. "No." "Are you going to take me back?" "No." "Then what do you want, Enzo?" His voice was gravel when he answered. "I want you safe." Ayanna took a step forward, fists clenched at her sides. "Then let me fight for it." Enzo stared at her, rain dripping from his coat. The storm between them silent but alive. "You don't run from fire," he said. "No," she said. "I am the fire." And in that moment, the city outside disappeared. Because the battleground wasn't Toronto. It was them. The first scream sliced through the quiet like a blade. Ayanna froze, halfway up the stairwell in the back of the same office building she'd been hiding in for nearly a week. Below her, tires screeched. Then a gunshot. Then another. The city had been humming just seconds before. Distant traffic and rain pattering on the windows like background noise. But now it felt like the air itself held its breath. She moved fast, every instinct on fire. Through the cracked second-story window, she saw the flashes first. Muzzle sparks in the alley, bodies moving like shadows. She couldn't see faces, but she recognized the way they moved. Calculated. Trained. Not street thugs. These were Enzo's men, and they were being hunted. Her chest tightened. One of them stumbled and went down hard. Another followed, blood splashing across the concrete. The ambush was clean, brutal, efficient, a trap. She didn't think, just ran. Out the side exit, cutting down the alley, feet pounding the slick pavement. She kept low, fast, invisible. Her eyes scanned every corner for him, for Enzo. But he wasn't among the fallen. He wasn't here. Which meant either he'd been warned or he was the target. She didn't realize she was calling him until she heard her own voice. "Enzo, pick up! Pick up!" The burner phone buzzed once. Disconnected. Ayanna stopped dead. And that's when she knew. This wasn't just a hit. It was personal. Someone had sold him out. The penthouse was in chaos by the time she got there. The guards were scattered, some injured, others shouting into radios, others gone completely. Blood streaked one of the elevator walls. A man she didn't recognize lay slumped near the front door, chest unmoving, a gun still clutched in his hand. Ayanna didn't stop to look. She sprinted through the shattered space like a woman possessed. Enzo was in the main room, kneeling beside Matteo, his second in command, who was coughing up blood and swearing in Italian through gritted teeth. Ayanna burst in, soaked and wild. Enzo looked up, his face cracked wide open. "Ayanna, who did this?" she said, breath heaving. Matteo spat onto the floor. "Someone inside," he growled. "They knew the codes, the timing. They even disabled the security feed." Enzo's jaw clenched. It was a message. Ayanna crossed to him. "You're bleeding." "I'm fine." "Don't lie to me." He didn't argue. His left shoulder was slick with blood, the fabric torn, but he was still standing, still moving. "Where's the rest of the crew?" she asked. "Scattered," Matteo replied. "Some didn't make it." "Where's Nico?" Enzo asked quietly. Ayanna froze. Nico. The kid who'd brought her food her first week here. The one who always kept his eyes down, but listened to everything. Too quiet. Too polite. Too invisible. Matteo hesitated. Gone. Enzo stood slowly, and something shifted in him. Gone was the composed, calculated boss. What rose in his place was a man ready for war. "He knew everything," Enzo said, voice low. "The schedules, the blind spots, where the backup drives were hidden." Matteo nodded grimly. "He's the leak." Ayanna stepped closer. "Where would he go?" "Downtown," Enzo said. "There's a safe house under Duca Street. He'd think I'd go to the ports, that I'd run." "Then we don't give him time to finish running," she said. Enzo looked at her then. Really looked. "You came back." She didn't blink. I told you, I don't run from fire. He stepped closer, cupped her face with a bloodied hand. They're going to come again. I don't care. It's not safe. It never was. And in that moment, he knew. He didn't have to protect her. He had to fight beside her. The drive was silent, fast, every red light ignored. Ayanna sat in the passenger seat of a stolen black SUV, a gun tucked beneath her coat, her fingers tapping against the door in restless rhythm. Enzo drove like he was chasing something only he could see. By the time they reached Duca Street, the rain had stopped. The silence was worse than any downpour. Enzo parked 2 blocks away. They moved as one. Quick, quiet, lethal. The building was low, half crumbling, forgotten. The perfect kind of place to hide something dangerous. They entered through a broken back window. Enzo led. Ayanna followed, heart hammering, grip steady. Inside, the air smelled like dust and oil. Voices echoed from the far end of the hall. One of them was Nico. I told you. He's done, Nico said, his voice low. Quick. Tonight was just the start. Once the family sees he can't keep control, they'll beg for someone else. A second voice, rougher, older, laughed. And you think they'll back you? I'm the one who got the codes. I'm the one who made the kill list. Enzo's slipping, and when he falls, I'll be standing on his ashes. Ayanna didn't wait. She burst through the door. Nico's eyes went wide. But he didn't get to speak. Enzo was on him in seconds. The room exploded into motion. Fists, gunfire, chaos. Ayanna ducked, fired once, grazing the second man's leg. He dropped. Enzo slammed Nico against the wall, his voice a low snarl in Italian, too fast for Ayanna to catch. But the rage, that was universal. Nico spit blood. You're done, old man. You don't get to speak, Enzo hissed. You broke oath. She was the weakness. She was the reason I didn't kill you the first time. Ayanna raised her gun, but Enzo stopped her. No, he said. This one's mine. And then, without flinching, without ceremony, he pulled the trigger. The shot echoed through the walls. Nico slumped. Silence fell. Ayanna didn't breathe until Enzo turned to her. His eyes were steel, his jaw was stone, but his hands shook. I told you, he whispered. Everything I touch turns to fire. She stepped toward him, took the gun from his hand, dropped it. Then let's burn what's left, she said. Enzo nodded. And together they walked out, side by side, no longer running, but ready to fight. The blood hadn't dried yet. It still slicked Enzo's knuckles as he sat in the back of the silent car, watching the Toronto skyline disappear behind them. Ayanna sat beside him, arms crossed, eyes forward, her body tense, but she wasn't pulling away. Not anymore. Not after what they'd done. Not after what they'd survived. They hadn't spoken since the warehouse, since Nico bled out on the concrete floor with a hole through his chest and a lifetime of betrayal in his eyes. The shot had been clean, the justice, necessary. But Enzo didn't feel victorious. He felt hollow. He'd built his empire from shadow and control, brick by brutal brick, thinking if he stood tall enough, untouched long enough, it would make him untouchable. But Ayanna had stepped into his world and cracked the foundation with nothing but her fire. And now she sat here beside him, alive, loyal, his, but only for as long as he chose the right path. He could feel it in the silence. There would be no more second chances. Say it, he said finally, eyes still on the road. Ayanna blinked once, slow. Say what? Whatever's sitting behind your teeth. She looked at him then, and her voice came low, steady. If you don't walk away from this life, it's only a matter of time before I lose you. or you lose me." "I protected you," he said. "You did, and you also kept me in a cage. I gave you freedom. You gave me walls and called it safety." He didn't respond. She leaned in slightly. "You love me?" His jaw tightened. "You know I do." "Then prove it." "How?" "Burn it down." She didn't mean literally, not the buildings. Not the safe houses or the blood money accounts hidden in foreign banks. She meant everything, the hierarchy, the fear, the legacy he was born into but never asked for, the violence dressed in loyalty. She meant walk away. For her. For them. Enzo leaned back, breath shallow. His temples throbbed. "You're asking me to throw away the only life I've ever known." "No," she said. "I'm asking you to choose a better one. You think we'd survive out there? Just live like ghosts in the real world?" "I think we've already been ghosts long enough." He looked at her again, and for a second, he saw it, clear as day. Her, standing in some quiet house with light in her eyes. Mornings without blood on the floor. Nights without a gun under the pillow. Peace. And him, with her. Not as a boss, not as a monster, as a man. But to get there, something had to die. He made the call at midnight. No hesitation, no second thoughts, just a number, burned into memory, dialed from a clean line. "Enzo," came the voice on the other end, heavy with respect and warning. "You shouldn't be using this number." "I'm out." Silence. "I beg your pardon?" the voice said slowly. "I said I'm out. I'm leaving. No handover, no war. But I'm done. And anyone who comes for me, or the woman I love, will not live to regret it. That's the last favor I'll ask." The pause was long. Then, finally, the voice replied, "You're making a mistake." "No," Enzo said. "I made a mistake when I thought power was worth dying for. Now I know better." He hung up, burned the phone, then walked into the living room, where Ayanna waited barefoot, hair loose around her shoulders, an oversized sweatshirt hanging off one side like it belonged to her, which it did. "You did it?" she asked. "I did." She stepped closer. "What now?" "I have a plane. Private. No trace. Montreal, then Italy. But not to hide." She raised a brow. "Then what?" "To bury the old life. Tie up the last piece." She studied him for a long moment. "You sure you're ready to let it all go?" He nodded. "I'm ready to choose you." Ayanna exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for days. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled something out. A ring. Simple. Silver. Slightly scuffed. "I've had this since the night of the penthouse escape," she said. "Found it in the drawer when I was searching for the override key. I almost left it behind, but something made me keep it." He stared at it. She held it out. "It doesn't have to mean forever. But it can mean right now. Me, you, a vow." His hand closed over hers. Then he pulled her close, and for the first time in years, Enzo De Luca kissed a woman without fear, without pretense, without blood behind his lips. Just love. Just her. The vow didn't need words. He'd already made it. In silence. In blood. In choice. Morning came slower in the countryside. The light didn't rush in through glass like it did in the penthouse. It crept across worn wooden floors and touched the edge of linen curtains like it was asking permission. Ayanna stirred beneath soft sheets, blinking into the silence that didn't feel empty, but full. Of peace, of breath, of safety. For a second, she didn't move. Just listen. No sirens. No distant gunshots. No weight pressing against her chest like a warning. Just birds. Wind, and the low hum of a man moving somewhere in the house. She smiled. Enzo was already up. He always was. Something about his body still didn't know how to rest. Not fully. But he was trying. And that mattered more than anything. Ayanna slid out of bed and padded barefoot into the kitchen, wearing one of his shirts. He said it looked better on her. She agreed. He was standing by the stove, hair still damp from his morning shower, cooking eggs like it was something he'd done his whole life. It hadn't been. The first time he'd cracked a shell, it landed on the floor. He'd cursed in Italian, and she'd laughed until her stomach hurt. Now, though, now he had rhythm. "You cookin' for me, Mr. De Luca?" she teased. He didn't turn around. "Would you still love me if I said no?" "I'd eat anyway." He glanced over his shoulder, smirked. "Then yes. It's all for you." She wrapped her arms around him from behind, chin resting between his shoulder blades. "How long's it been?" she murmured. 3 months, give or take. "You counting?" "I count everything." It was true. Enzo still carried numbers in his bones. But they were different now. Less about body counts and territory, more about how many days he could go without waking up to fear. How many nights he could sleep without checking the windows. How long he could hold her without the ghost of his past pulling at the edges. He flipped the eggs, then turned and kissed her forehead. They ate at the table facing the garden. Sunlight spilled across their plates. Her foot brushed his under the wood. It was all so quiet. Ayanna didn't know what she'd expected when they fled Toronto. Not this. Not the rolling hills and the dusty roads and the sound of Enzo reading next to the fire at night like some man pulled from a different life. He chopped wood now, grew tomatoes, fed stray cats. She teased him about it relentlessly, but he didn't flinch anymore. He laughed. He lived. She reached across the table, fingers finding his. "You ever miss it?" she asked. He didn't ask what. He knew. "No," he said after a beat. "Not the life. Maybe the purpose. The way it made everything feel sharp. And now?" He squeezed her hand. "Now everything feels real." They didn't talk much about the past. Not the blood, not the betrayals, not the part where he almost lost her more than once. It lived between them still, like a scar, visible, but healed. Later that day, she wandered into the back field. The sun was high, the wind warm. Enzo watched her from the porch as she danced barefoot in the grass, laughing at nothing, hair wild in the wind. He remembered the first night, the alley, the fear in her eyes, the fire in her voice, the way she never begged, never broke. She'd changed everything, not with a bullet, but with truth. Ayanna turned suddenly, caught him staring. She grinned. "You still looking at me like I'm gonna vanish?" He stepped off the porch, walked straight to her, pulled her in. "You appeared out of nowhere," he said softly. "I'm just making sure you're still real." She touched his jaw, thumb brushing the faint scar there. "I'm not going anywhere, Enzo." "I believe you." They stood like that for a long while. No need to run, no reason to hide. The man who once ruled a criminal empire now held only her. And he was richer for it. That night, they curled into each other beneath soft blankets. No guards, no alarms, just skin and breath, and the quiet hum of a life earned, not taken. Enzo traced circles on her back, voice barely above a whisper. "What began as fear," Ayanna smiled against his chest, "became fate." And in the silence that followed, they both finally understood. Forever had already begun.